favorite video to film every single year. It's the video that I make that finishes off the year for my channel. That is what I think are the 10 best albums to come out this year. And this year, it's the year 2025, or at least it's the end of 2025. That's why I'm making this year-end list. As I look through some of the albums I listened to this year that were just absolutely good, and I still am going back to since listening to them for the first time. So, yeah. Just know, again, that this list is subjective. There's going to be some that you won't agree with me on. That's fine. That's your opinion. I have my opinion. I am not telling you that this is the definitive best of albums list. This is just my list for the 10 best albums of the year. So now that I got that out of the way, let's start it off with the number 10 spot.
We walk like 10 people who haven't died yet. We ride like passengers without a plan.
3 Days Grace are back, but it's with a twist. Adam Gontier came back, but hey, they're not getting rid of Matt Walst. He's sticking around too, so now 3 Days Grace has 2 vocalists. And I gotta say, worked out better than I thought it was going to. I was excited when I saw that Adam was coming back, and the first single, Mayday, had me hyped for what was to come, because it really sounded like what you would get from old 3 Days Grace. And, you know, it's still your typical newer 3 Days Grace stuff, but it wasn't as generic and boring as what we had been getting from the past couple releases, because you gotta remember, their last album that they put out, the last one where Matt was just by himself on vocals, that made my worst of the year list at like number 3 or number 4 or something like that. And I thought 3 Days Grace were just completely done for. I did not think I would ever enjoy an album from them again, but this is, from start to finish, a pretty fantastic album. Not the best, but one of the best that they've put out in a while. And it's not necessarily because Adam came back, but it's just the fact that they decided to do different things throughout the album, and each song didn't sound similar to one another. There was always some sort of difference. Plus, I feel like, too, Adam and Matt's voices complement each other, whether they're, you know, singing together or, you know, doing their own thing, because there's times where, you know, Matt will sing the first verse, and then Adam will come in with the chorus, and then Adam will sing the second verse, and Matt comes in with the chorus, you know, that kind of thing, which I think is pretty cool, you know, and unique for the band, and it's just really changed their image, but yet it's still 3 Days Grace, so I can appreciate it, and it's my 10th favorite album of the year.
He's putting on a drum show.
Okay, so last year when I said that that Blurry Face story came to an end, I was wrong, because Breach is now the official end to the 21 Pilots Blurry Face story that they started 10 years back with the album of the same name. As Breach just is not necessarily an epic conclusion. There was some letdown here, that's why it's only at number 9, but at the same point in time, they're still pumping out good music and doing their thing, and the fact that this could be the last new music that we get from them for a while, as with Josh Dunn and Debbie Ryan having their first child together and whatnot, the band plans on taking a hiatus for a little bit. Now, how long is that going to be? I don't know, but Breach is still a nice album for 21 Pilots, and they still show you that after all these years, even after gaining bigger popularity, they can still go out and make an album that doesn't necessarily fully pander. I mean, you listen to Drum Show, that is completely different from anything on the album and is arguably my favorite song that 21 Pilots has ever put out. And Josh Dunn even gets to show off his vocals for a little bit, like, during that song. Like, it's not like he takes main vocals anywhere, but for, like, that small 15-second snippet in that song, it's actually just his voice. And, hey, he's a pretty good singer. Maybe he should sing more. I don't know, but, hey, 21 Pilots continuing to do well and concluding a pretty interesting story that, to this day, I still don't fully understand. Yes, I'm a fan of baby metal. There, I said it. Most people know me, you know, I'd say, you know, there's a lot of that Japanese metal is cheesy. I'm not even a big fan of, like, animes and stuff like that. It's just not my forte, but there's just something about baby metal that makes it so much fun. I don't know if it's just the like, pop dancing to the metal music or whatever, but man, they decided to get heavy on this one. I mean, they collabed with Poppy and Courtney LaPlante, of all things. Like, I was just like, wow. And even, I know they did that one with, what was it, Slaughter to Prevail, but that was just kind of like, they were the best part of that song. And then they even got a little silly by collabing with Electric Callboy and just making you go, wow, what can't Baby Metal do? They're doing a lot of different things here this time around. And if I'm not mistaken, this was their first album in a while. Like, they took a good hiatus, they went through a member change, and they come back with this. Like, good on you, girls. Very strong.
I can't seem to get my mind out of the gutter. Your lips look like cherries, your touch feels like butter.
Now, most of you probably don't know who Lydia Knight is. I don't know how deep your music taste is. But Lydia Knight used to be in a band called The Regrets, a band that has since, well, folded and disbanded, and Lydia Knight has decided to go solo, which isn't a surprise. I kind of thought that was going to happen when I saw that The Regrets were disbanding back in, was it the end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023? I can't fully remember, but it was, it wasn't that long ago. And her debut solo album, Parody for Pleasure, hits well. When she released her debut single, Pity Party, I said, oh yeah, this is going to be a whole lot of fun. And there are some semblance of The Regrets in there. Like, do not get me wrong, that still comes through. But Lydia's able to do a little bit more with her music than I think she wanted to or could do with The Regrets. Because she even said at one point in time toward the end of The Regrets that she just had trouble writing the instrumentation for her bandmates, so that way they can do their job on the song, that it was almost destined that she was just going to go solo at some point. I mean, listen to The Regrets last album and listen to this album back to back, and you'll definitely see that Lydia was kind of like, okay, well, I'm getting ready to do the solo thing, so this is what I want it to sound like, and it bleeds through. But no, she gets songs that are so sarcastic and bratty and fun, but then with a song like Pity Party, man, it just goes deep into a lot of personal issues that some I can relate to and whatnot, so it just hits hard. And the fact that this album did that, her first step into the solo grounds, it was nice, and it gets me excited for what her solo career long term has to bring with it. Had to shout out a band from my home state, Maryland. Well, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, lived there for a couple years, family's from there. I've lived in Pennsylvania most of my life, but still, I'm Maryland through and through. With Turnstile, they've been a band that I've always liked. I had the privilege of getting to see them live opening for Blink-182 at Hershey Park a couple years ago, and it was just as crazy as you thought it would be. And it had been a while since they had released an album, and Never Enough is fairly good. I mean, yeah, there was certain times I'm like, they did this on their last album. Even the song Never Enough kind of reminded me a lot of Mystery, which was the big single off of the last record. But man, they tried a lot of different things. I mean, there's like a song where there's like a funky disco feel to it. There's songs that have these like weird synths to them as well, which they did on their last record, but it's even more heavy on this one. Like, they just do such a good job of mixing up genres while also staying true to their punk roots as well. Like, I think that's one big thing that they've been able to do despite the change in sound, is staying true to their punk roots. And it's just continuing to be entertaining through and through.
The more you give a fuck, I guess the less you make money. Homie, we just started trying to elevate. Heaven is a crime scene.
Now, you know me, I'm not a big fan of posthumous releases, especially years after the artist has passed away. But with Balloonerism with Mac Miller, there's something about it where you could tell that this was made and put out to just show you the conclusion to his legacy and just what he had waiting in the wings for us before he sadly passed away. I mean, it's just so full, it's sad, man. It really is sad. I mean, Mac Miller just continues to amaze me at what he had, even, years after his death. Because I did like the posthumous releases that came out after he passed away as well, as I believe he was basically working on them. They were almost finished, so they finished them and put these out. And even though these were kind of like your unfinished songs that he just kind of had on like voice memos and stuff, they weren't butchered like with an XXXTentacion kind of thing. They actually, whoever put this together took their time into making it beautiful sounding and what you would actually expect from Mac Miller himself. And they basically weren't grave robbing him. They, again, were just trying to give us an epic conclusion to the legacy of Mac Miller and his music, and that is something that I can really, really appreciate about this album. So in the last video, the worst albums of the year, I talked about how there was a lot of comeback attempts in 2025, and most of them didn't work. But here is one of the occasions where it did, outside of other than 3 Days Grace, Lady Gaga's Mayhem. Now, her last record was my least favorite record she ever made. I just couldn't get into it. It was too, how do I put this? Like, it was too clubby for me in a way. Like, she's always had songs that you can play at the club and all this stuff, but like, her last record was just too much of that, like too, like, I don't know how I feel about this. But when I heard the single, what was it, Disease and Abracadabra, and even Die With A Smile with Bruno Mars, I was like, wait a minute, hold on, she's cooking again, let's let her cook. And then to add to the deluxe edition, the Dead Dance, which was big because it appeared on season 2 of Wednesday, Lady Gaga just goes to show you that she made a mulligan of an album, but hey, she's going to be prone to rebound. She did a great job with it, and just goes to show you that she still has it even after all these years. Also going back to kind of the weird aesthetics in the music videos that we were so used to seeing back then. Like, look at Disease's music video and Abracadabra's music video. It's so weird. The Dead Dance is weird in itself because it's just like, well, I mean, she made it for Wednesday, and Tim Burton did direct the music video, so of course it's going to have a weird atmosphere to it. I mean, who wouldn't expect that? Die With A Smile was probably the only music video where the aesthetic wasn't unusual. It was a lot more like old-timey, like back in the 60s-ish is what they were going for there, but her and Bruno just do a good job on that duet. But yes, this album from start to finish is absolutely fantastic, and it's good to see that Lady Gaga was able to return with such force. Deftones should still not be putting out good music, but somehow, years into this, they are. I mean, good lord, just when you think they can't punch you in the mouth anymore, they continue to do it. Ohms was my record of the year in 2021, I think it was, and I didn't think Deftones could get any higher than that. Now, granted, they aren't my record of the year this year. To make number 3 after being number 1, that's still pretty impressive because you're not moving down too far on the list. You're staying right in your range. This is a band that's been around for 30 plus years. They've had some great albums, and even when they've experimented a little bit, they still make some pretty decent albums in itself. Gore is one of the most unusual Deftones records, and yet somehow, someway, you're still like, I enjoy this though, like I shouldn't, but I do. And with Private Music, my god, I mean, they just continue to rep out the heavy stuff while, you know, giving you some melodic stuff mixed in there. It's everything you like about the Deftones and more, and I'm just glad that they could still just kick your ass on these albums, and kick your ass in a good way by making you listen and go, whoa, okay, I see you there. You don't need to prove to me that you're good anymore because you're doing it right now.
I'll be the biggest star at this fucking karaoke bar. No, you shouldn't.
Okay, alright, listen. Yes, Hayley Williams' new album made the list, but keep in mind, this is the highest I've rated a Hayley Williams solo album / Paramore project on this channel since starting these year-end lists. I mean, don't get me wrong, Petals for Armor was great, Flowers for Vases, you know, yeah, I mean, could have been better, but it wasn't terrible. And with Paramore's most recent record, this is why I believe it was number 7 on my best albums of the year in 2023, so still pretty good. But this Hayley Williams solo record really surprised me. I mean, yes, she did release all the songs just as singles before an actual album even came out, but that's because she wanted the fans to decide the order of the track listing, which I thought was pretty unique in itself. And a lot of these songs kick ass, man. Isa My OJ is the kickoff to the album. That's excellent. Mertazapine, the title track is so catchy. That's the thing about a lot of these songs, is they're so catchy, and there are some that definitely hit you in the face. Like, when did Hayley Williams get this angry? Like, now she's screaming at the top of her lungs in some of these songs. Like, it's just so interesting with this record. I feel like she experimented more on this one than she did on her previous 2 solo records, because her previous 2 solo records, yeah, was shying away from what she was doing with Paramore, but with Ego Death and a Bachelorette Party, it just seemed like Hayley Williams had a lot of shit to get off her chest, and she did it here. And she has said that this is probably going to be her last solo album because Paramore is her main focus, but we've heard that before, and she released another album after Petals for Armor when she wasn't supposed to, so, you know, who knows at this point. But with this one, I would say this is her best solo work to date. Alright, before we get to the number 1, the best album of 2025 in my opinion, we have to look at 5 honorable mentions ones that barely missed the list. These albums were good, but not good enough to beat out these great albums. So, in no particular order, here are those 5 albums.
Are you ever gonna pick me up? Are you ever gonna tell me why? Tell me, baby.
Hey, look at that. Speaking of Paramore, their drummer, Zach Farrow, decided to release a solo album. Now, he's released music outside of Paramore before with Half Noise, but never by himself as Zach Farrow, the solo artist. And with Operator, you really get to see the music that Zach Farrow is into, because, my goodness, he loves a lot of just jazz, disco, that kind of stuff. Very interesting, and he has such an interesting voice, too, that it works for it. So, I'm happy for him that he was able to get this off the ground, because it was solid.
Something is coming around, can't you see? It's got me going out of my mind. Something is coming.
I mean, Darren Malakian and Scars on Broadway have always been interesting, and yes, there are some songs, I understand, that sound like System of a Down on here, but from what I heard, some of these songs were pitched to System of a Down and didn't make it, so he decided to put it on this album and kind of twist it into, you know, songs that would... the sound of the songs that would fit this band the best, and they just come packing a punch, very political. There's always some sort of statement when we're talking about Darren Malakian. I mean, come on, unless it's like, what's the song Cigarro that System of a Down did, where he talks about how he thinks his dick is bigger than mine and whatnot. Like, that probably is that's probably a nonsense song. But these songs, I can assure you, I mean, when it's called Addicted to the Violence, you know you're getting something very political, and Darren Malakian can usually hit it out of the ballpark with that. You know what? Rise Against disappointed, but Chevelle didn't. I love this record, and I think you should listen to it if you haven't already. That's my PSA for that.
There's gonna be frustration in this white man's game, and they're gonna have us tied up once it's legal.
Holly freaking Hallelujah. Chance learned from whatever the hell the big day was, which came out, God, like 7 years ago at this point. And with this new album, Starline, he just went back to making music that seemed like it wasn't meant to be cringy. There's some moments on here where you're like, tone that back a little bit. But man, he went back to what we loved about him for stuff like acid rap and all that kind of stuff. And it just made me go, see, if you would have just released this the first time around, probably would have never have fallen off in the first place.
Stop playing with me. Fuck you and your mama. Stop playing with me. Fuck you and your dreams. Stop playing with me. Stop playing.
Okay, this shocked me too, because Tyler, the Creator, was my album of the year last year with Chromacopia, but, I mean, he did kind of drop this album out of nowhere. Like, no one expected him to release albums in back-to-back years. He's never done that because, let's be real here, Call Me If You Get Lost, the estate sale, was a deluxe edition to Call Me If You Get Lost, so it never really was a separate album from itself. Tyler usually takes 3 to 4 years, early on 2 years, in between album releases to, release records. So it was to everyone's surprise that he came back with Don't Tap That Glass. It's only 10 tracks, it's under 30 minutes long, but there's still some good stuff on here, but compared to Chromacopia, it's not as good, not as memorable, but he was just having fun this time around, and you can't fault the man for that. So with that being said, what was my best album of 2025? Well, if you didn't know by this list, the girls dominated this year. But there was one girl in particular that dominated a lot, and when her band released their album, boy, it packed a punch that I hoped it would.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
I love that Spirit Box is popping through in the mainstream because, again, they're one of those bands that probably shouldn't. I thought they'd be too heavy to ever do that, but they are. And outside of, Tsunami Sea, the album, Courtney LaPlante was also on a song with Baby Metal. She did that song with Amy Lee and Poppy that just, blew the internet away. Tsunami Sea was just an adventure. It's only like the second or third time that I've ever given like a brand new album on the day of its release a perfect 10 out of 10. But with the other two, I kind of backed off on that, being like, yeah, going back and listening to them, I don't think they're, perfect like I thought they were. But with Tsunami Sea, it's still that perfect 10 out of 10. Like, it has not, died on me at all. There haven't been songs on that record I go, maybe I overhyped this song a little too much. It still holds up. And this came out early in the year, like early in the year. So the fact that it's still a 10 out of 10 to me, even being out, I think it was like January, it just goes to show you how strong this album is and how much of a punch it just packs. It is just so amazing. And Spirit Box just keep impressing with each and every release. And I'm already excited for what they have next, so who knows when that'll come. But, I mean, hey, if you got more, give it to me, please. Or there you have it. That was my list for the 10 best albums of 2025. You might not agree with me again, because I'm not saying that this list is fact. I'm just saying that from what I listened to this year music-wise, these 10 albums really caught my attention, and some of these I was anticipating and was happy to not be let down by them. I'd really like to hear in the comments below what were some of your favorite albums this year that maybe I didn't mention, or if you disagree with me on some of these albums, feel free to write in the comments why you disagree, that they're not the best to you, at least. But yeah, until then, stay safe out there, have a happy holidays, and I will catch you all in 2026.